Hi, it is September something, 2022. So I'm still here in the world. And the world still sucks, man. People continue to act like shit. Men continue to act like shit. Women continue to wonder why men act like shit. While at the same time, when the rare guy does act the right way, treating him like shit. And wondering why no other guys want what he has. So that, unfortunately, has been my experience. And it is what it is, man. People fear honesty, people fear authenticity, and people run for the fucking hills when that's what you present, and that has been my experience. Even though I do believe that being authentic and being real is the right way to be. People hide behind these sets of values that they've adhered to, these ideas that they just will not budge from, they will not compromise on, they will not reconsider. They have this kind of blind loyalty, this blind faith, whether it's to another person, whether it's to an idea, a politician, a political party. To some people, it's materializes in the form of a race or a nation or whatever their group is, their family group, their whatever it is. And gosh, I forgot what I was going to say with that. I was talking about how good people have had a rough go of it, and that how people seeing that good behavior causes other people not to treat you well, kind of inspires people not to act right, because people don't want to suffer those consequences. No one wants to suffer them. Some people choose to suffer them for what they perceive as a higher good, and that is what I do. Because each of us has a choice, man. I could kill myself any fucking given second of this day or tomorrow. And that's a choice you can't take from me. And it's an option that's on the table. It's an option I've considered many, 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 many times. But have not yet executed, because I feel that a greater purpose will be served by my existence here, despite the fact that my existence here is one of continual fucking suffering and torment. So, I guess we could say I'm playing for the long run. I believe in God. I believe that there is an afterlife, that there is a paradise, that I will eventually make it there, whether it's in this world or in the next world. I do believe that. I do believe that I will someday experience joy. And I believe that once that experience begins, it will continue, and I don't believe it will end. I don't believe that we will cease to exist. I believe that a loving Creator created us so that we could continue to exist in perpetuity and unravel the secrets and the mysteries of this universe and enjoy ourselves, and create a beautiful home for ourselves. And I think we'll have enough things to entertain ourselves. So I'm trying to do it here. I'm trying to convert this world into paradise. There is a path to do that. I outline it in my book. If anyone's interested, although I realize that most people at this point are still focused not on learning and not on listening and understanding, but on trying to express their own point of view, which I have listened to and already incorporated into my understanding, despite their being unaware of this because they aren't looking to listen or understand. So it's a sad world, man. Government makes things shitty, and human beings make things even fucking shittier, man. It's just there's so much hatred. There's so many people who are just going out of their way to make things worse for other people, man. And it's really gross. It really sucks. But unfortunately, people who do that are being rewarded. They're being rewarded socially. They're being rewarded financially. And so the bad behavior continues to be incentivized and rewarded, and good behavior continues to be punished. And this is where we are. But despite being here, my good behavior continues. And it's not perfect. I do have lapses in judgment, and I'm always learning, but my intentions are kind, and I'm not here trying to hurt other people. There was a guy I got into a little bit of a conversation with the other day, and he's just a guy who just, for whatever reason, seems to enjoy hurting other people. And he was attempting to do this to me after having attempted to do so in the past on multiple occasions. And on this occasion, I was done with it, and I told him what I thought of him. I told him what I thought his issues might be, and I gave him a piece of my mind, man. So I was willing to die that night because I'm playing for the long run, man. And if I'm the only guy in the room willing to call out a bully for being a bully, then I'm gonna be that fucking guy. And if he puts a bullet through my head because I'm that fucking guy, then that's just the way it is, and this world will lose me. And hopefully someone else can show the way to fucking freedom because they read my fucking book. And it's what it is, man. God, I believe, ultimately steps in at key moments, and if he decides I'm done on this planet, then he decides that's what that is. And in a lot of ways, I feel like that's a reasonable possibility, because it seems like my ambitions, my entire personality is just very incongruent with the norms of this society and the way people conduct themselves, and it might make more sense for me to live somewhere with some different rules. And even though this place is evolving, evolution is a continuous process, and it might just make more sense to God to put me somewhere that's at a different place in its evolution. and just to be this kind of strange enigma that lived here for a little while, that people just, when they sat back and they listened and they looked and they went back, they're just like, how did he do this? How did he put this together? And a lot of people don't know what I'm talking about, man. Maybe if you read my book, you might be, maybe some of the stuff in there would trigger that. But a lot of stuff isn't going to be obvious until later. Because people aren't looking for it. People aren't interested. People aren't looking at me and thinking about me and studying me at this point. So, I haven't broken any of the rules in a way that has been obvious to people that something amazing has happened yet. But I will say that some pretty interesting, tangible things are happening in this world right now. And there's a lot of people who've come into my life who just seem to fit real well. I don't know, man. I think it's actually, if you're around people, even if people are just random mutations with random preferences and random characteristics and everything, just the chances are there's going to be something they're going to know, you're going to be able to put that knowledge together and create something amazing, man. So, like, creation is happening, man, and, like, I think some really good and powerful things are happening. There's a place where conversations can happen. It's a safe place, man. And it's a lot of things can happen in this place, man. And it's very well disguised. It's very it's not a very suspicious place. And even though the powers that be may understand that, like, their best bet is to keep everyone under martial law so they can't gather and all this shit, there's only so much you can do legally to make that happen, They were able to shut down Arizona for a little bit, but it wasn't totally shut down. There were still places up and running. And now people are even more prepared for it, because when it happened before, everyone had to kind of scramble. Wow, how are we going to meet up? How are we going to do the things we normally do now that they're shut down? Well, people now are more prepared for that. And so I don't think this will be stopped, man. And I think what's going to happen is going to be something real fucking powerful, man. I think you're going to see some individuals emerge out of this particular group in this particular place who are going to be some real fucking movers and shakers, man. Who are going to be some very well-liked people in our new society. Because these are the people who are going to rebuild this fucking society, man. The human population consists almost entirely of people who would be considered poor by Western standards. The amount of people who live a good standard of living by Western standards is very, very small. A lot of people have been living in real desperate conditions. They've been desperate not only financially, but emotionally. For no one has listened to them. No one's heard the things they have to say, because the things they have to say frighten people. People run away from people like me, and they run away from people like these people. But I don't run away from them, man. I listen to them, and I connect. And we say what we say, and it is what it is, man. It's real difficult in public to have big conversations with people, because there's only so much you can say in public. But as time goes on, what you can get away with saying is going to increase, because there's love in the air, man. There is some real love in this fucking air, man. And people aren't going to stop loving other people because they said the wrong words. So, revolutions are happening, my loves. This is a great time to be alive, man. Even though it sucks to be alive because it hurts, it's a great time to be alive because the pain can't last much longer, man. The suffering can't last much longer because the fucking credit can't last much fucking longer, man. The bond market's collapsing. People don't understand the gold market, man. Gold, its primary use case throughout history has been as a monetary metal. It is used and fashioned into jewelry, and that use is the reason it has value. It's because it can be fashioned into items that are beautiful, that have value. However, its purpose, its reason to be, its primary purpose has been money. And so right now we're on a dollar-based system. That means the dollar is a competitor of gold. And not only is it a competitor of gold, but it's a competitor that currently has the whole market. So the dollar and gold have an inverse relationship. If you look back on charts throughout time, this has been true. They are, if you look at the dollar versus other foreign currencies, the dollar index, as it goes up, the gold price tends to go down, and vice versa, because they compete for the role of essentially the global reserve currency. So, what's happening right now is the bond market is collapsing. The credit that has been extended to the U.S. government is no good. The government doesn't have the money to pay unless the Fed prints that money and gives it to the government to pay. So what that means is that the government needs people to loan it money. We got two ways we can go, right? You can print money or you can lend money. We're going to go down each avenue and I'm going to explain it. And you're going to see why gold is going to become the winner of that competition. This is good, man. I haven't done this in a while, man. And I want to recover this because this is a big topic. So, if we say the Fed will not print the money, we're going to raise that debt. Well, we're not going to raise it because we're operating at a deficit, meaning new treasuries have to be issued all the time. And treasuries are maturing and have to be renewed all the time. And interest is due all the time. So they have to they have to keep borrowing more. They are a net buyer. They're a net seller of treasuries. The treasury itself is a seller of treasuries, right? So they sell bonds. The Fed, if they're not buying bonds, we're going to assume that they're selling bonds. So if they're selling bonds, because they're trying to rein in inflation, right? They're trying not to print money. They're trying to be, this is the hawkish Fed possibility, right? What's going to happen is they're selling bonds. The U.S. government's selling bonds. Who's buying bonds? No one's buying bonds. So because no one's buying bonds, the interest rate has to increase until you find a buyer. Well, what's going to happen is there will be no buyer, so the bond market will collapse. And it's not just the U.S. Treasury market we have to worry about, because that yield is used in a lot of other things. First of all, the whole bond market's fucked. All the debt's fucked. All the bonds are dead, right? The whole bond market's collapsing. The housing, the mortgage market's collapsing. The fucking treasury market's collapsing. The corporate debt market's collapsing. The personal debt market's collapsing. All of this is collapsing, right? So what does that mean? That means the banks are failing. That means the banks have a lot of bad debt on their balance sheets that they have no way to pay. They have depositors they have no way to pay. That means the government has this FDIC insurance. They don't have any way to pay that either. So they're either going to have to default on FDIC, and the banks are going to have to default on the deposits, or the Fed's going to have to reverse course and print. But right now we're going to say they're not going to do that because the Fed wants to try to save the dollar, right? This is the hawkish path. Because everyone kind of knows the dovish path. Everyone kind of knows that if the Fed prints, the dollar's fucking going to zero. Like, everyone kind of knows, like, in the long run, but I'm explaining the other path. In fact, maybe I just explained that path on this video. So they default on FDIC, right? So no one gets their money out of the bank, so your savings are gone, your treasury market's gone. Your S&P 500 isn't gone, but it's severely hurt because, for many reasons. One reason is that there's banks, there's insurance companies, there's companies in there that owned that debt that now have lost that investment and have gone belly up. So you're going to have a lot of companies, financial companies, going bankrupt and they're going to be worthless. So they're worthless. They're zero. There's nothing. They're gone. That's just a part of the S&P, though. It's a big part, but it's just a part. You've also got all these tech companies and shit, right? All the NASDAQ companies. These a lot of these are based on future earnings, right? They're not actually making a huge profit. It's all based on this valuation based on future earnings. Well, future earnings are discounted at an interest rate that's based on the 10-year treasury rate. If I run out of film, if this cuts off, I'll do a part 2 when I get my video back and running. So that's coming if it does cut off, just to let you know. So where were we? So a lot of these stocks are going to collapse in value, and the same with the cryptocurrency market, because there's been a lot of leverage and all that. If the debt's bad, if all that's bad, all that's collapsing, right? So, like, there are companies that are going to discover that, like, maybe they were servicers of these banks, etc. They're going to go bankrupt. They're going to lose part of their business. So there's going to be a lot of contraction, a lot of selling off, a lot of liquidation, a lot of bankruptcies. Now, there will be some value underneath. It's not, there's some companies have either they produce something that people will still desire and still need and still want. You know, Procter and Gamble probably won't go to zero because they do manufacture all these products that, like, or they distribute them, whatever they do, you know, people actually use this stuff. So they have an actual operating business that has value. There's also companies that have assets that have value. They have buildings, they have land, they have equipment, they have inventory. So there's physical stuff they own, supplies, computers, furniture. So So all that stuff still has some real value. So some of these companies might not have an operating model anymore, but they will have uh, assets that have value. So the stock's not worth nothing because they can liquidate those assets, they can sell them, and that can raise some money, assuming they had enough to cover their debt. Maybe the shareholders have some value left. Now, a lot of companies have a lot of debt, but this is where we run into problems, right? Because we have this large, complex bankruptcy process. We're going to suddenly be in this massive depression, right? This is where we have to have economic freedom, because people need to regrow an economy with the current tax code. There's a reason people aren't building manufacturing plants in America, you know. They can't. We're going to need to hire cheap fucking labor, man. People are going to be starving to fucking death, and they're going to need any kind of labor they can fucking get at any fucking price. And if that means a guy opens up a fucking factory and he's paying people $2 an hour, that's what that fucking means, man. And those people will be grateful they had $2 to go buy a fucking 4 tacos from Jack in the Box to fucking share with their fucking family that night, instead of nothing. And that's shitty, but that's gonna be fucking reality. Because we're going into an economic fucking depression, kid. So, you know, the economic freedom can allow people to be productive, because if we don't have to jump through all the legal hoops, all the bullshit, these companies don't have to go through bankruptcy court, all this bullshit. All they gotta do, they take all these assets, all this shit, they auction them off. And people who are trying to start businesses, people who are trying to get assets, get things working, trying to get things moving, they can come in, they can buy these assets, and we can start moving them around, right? And economies can start functioning. People can start getting paid to deliver shit from here to there, you know? Like, people are going to need people to do work. But in order to do that, in order to hire them to make all that work, maybe you don't trust the fucking bank because it just fucking defaulted on fucking FDIC and your entire fucking savings is gone, and you had to sell a fucking family heirloom to raise enough fucking money to buy a fucking lawnmower to go around and mow fucking lawns, right? And you're mowing lawns for a fucking living, right? And maybe your fucking back gives out one day because you're fucking 80 years old, but you don't have any fucking money, so you still have to work. Well, you still got a fucking lawnmower, and there's some kid down the street who needs a job, and you're gonna let him mow your fucking lawnmower, and you're gonna split the money with him because you have the capital and he's doing the labor. So you can just do this, make an agreement, and maybe you're using silver fucking coins to transact in because you don't trust the banks because they fucked you over. Now you can do this. You don't have to worry about the government coming in saying, oh, you gotta fucking get a wage, fucking payroll, you gotta get this fucking workers' comp, you gotta get this, that, benefits, Obamacare. None of that bullshit. You just pay him his silver for you. The guy pays you your fucking shit, your copper fucking coin, whatever it is, to fucking mow his lawn. Your 2 copper coins, you split them in half, you're done, you know, and you made your shit. And this is going to be a reality. This is going to be what people are going to be doing, is this kind of thing, just to fucking try to survive, man. And when government's not in the way, all this can happen. And that's what we're gonna need, man. So, we got all these dollars that have been printed. And even if the financial markets have collapsed, all of these physical dollars, trillions and trillions of them, well, they still exist. Someone has these, you know. And so these dollars, if we're talking about the regular people, most people don't have that much cash, right? And everything in the bank is gone. So it's like all the people who have this cash, if we're still using that, they're going to have a huge advantage. And these might not be the people that you want to have that advantage. Now, they might not be the worst people. You know, it's probably going to be people like drug dealers, people who've been operating in the black market, because a lot of that uses cash. So it's going to be people who've been in the sex trade, the gun trade, the drug trade, all the black market trades. These are the guys who are going to have the most cash. So if that's what we're using, these guys are going to have major economic advantages. Now, maybe you're okay with that. Maybe that's what you want. But I propose that fuck the government cash. We use fucking gold. And, because it's secure, man, because the government has a mint, man, they can print up fucking cash, right? So assuming they're still there, right? Like, they haven't given us economic, maybe they've given us economic freedom so we're not at least dead. Because you're going to need the economic freedom just to not die, right? Like, that's like basic, right? So like now let's say the government still exists, but it's given us enough economic freedom that we can survive. At least we can begin to rebuild an economy, right? But it still exists in some form. Well, I would be concerned that the government now is going to say, well, we can just print this cash, pay ourselves, and use that, and then that cash is going to lose all its value. So that's why gold and silver is good, even in the event that, well, that cash is an option, I guess. You know, here's another thing that I forgot to mention. People don't understand, like, the bond market is a safe haven. At least it's perceived as a safe haven. So, like, people balance their portfolios between stocks and bonds, and they see stocks as more risky and bonds as safer. Well, once the bond market has collapsed, people aren't going to see bonds as safe anymore, and therefore gold will become the default safe haven. So even once that happens, gold is going to be worth a whole lot more than it is now, because people are going to realize that that is the safest asset. And there's a market for safety in the wake of an economic collapse. So gold will be money. That's what people will use, and we will get economic freedom, because that's the only way we'll stay alive, man. And with that, you guys have a good evening.